So I'm going to give everybody a warning that when I decided I was going to do this lightning talk, that I decided to stick with a data from Star Trek theme for the entire thing as a visual aid, but I was hoping that I was preaching to the choir as far as Star Trek fans go. So hopefully that works out in my benefit. So when most people talk about testing and data in the same sentence, usually they're talking about things like measuring quality or testing metrics. And the kind of data that I want to talk about tonight is more about customer data or analytics, or some people call it instrumentation, and kind of how we as testers can better use that to make our lives easier. Basically anything that's added to your code that reports somewhere else for later consumption. So who here kind of has direct access to their company's analytics themselves? Okay, and who here can kind of ask somebody to generate a report for them on data and then kind of get it back eventually? Okay, cool. So as testers, data is our friend. It really can illuminate some things about how users are using products, not using products, kind of what OSs they're running, software they're running, hardware they're running, common user scenarios that we as testers might not even be thinking about. And basically, we can use all these to better run tests like the user. And anytime that we're trying to save a little time, do something a little better, feel a little less frustrated as testers, we can kind of leverage all this user data to run things a little smoother and make our lives better. These are some examples of some things that I've kind of been interested in lately. Things like, how is iOS 9.3 tracking against iOS 7? Do I still need to run tests on the original Kindle Fire?
No.
Unfortunately, I do. We just had to release a service pack, and it was really annoying. Like, how are people using new features? Things like language usage, like how are people using kind of new localization that we've been doing. But basically, anything that your customers are doing, your company probably is already doing analytics with. And it might be a marketing-driven thing, but probably you as testers should be leveraging that to kind of make your own lives better. So start gathering your data early. Collect data before you need it is kind of a weird way to phrase this, but the thing that I always like to say is that data plus time equals learning. You always want to be able to compare things if you can. So as an example, if you're working for a company that sells things online, maybe you have the ability only to kind of pay with something with one credit card right now. But you know that in 6 months, you're going to have the ability to have 3 credit cards or kind of multiple payment things. You want to kind of start tracking how people are using that one credit card now. Are they swapping things out? How much money are they spending now? How much time are they spending on the website? So that when you do add a new feature, how does that change? How are they spending money now? Kind of have comparison points. Make sure that your data is accurate too is a big thing. It's very easy to start diving into data and realize that you can't trust it. So if you're kind of depending on hitting a button 37 times and then equaling 37 on some counter and some data thing, make sure that that's actually true, because you can quickly get into situations where 37 equals 3 or 37 equals 500. So when you're adding hooks for data, make sure that it's accurate. Data needs context. It's very easy to jump to conclusions on data without kind of understanding what you're looking at. For example, if you were tracking iOS 8 usage or something like that, and you saw a massive dip, you might say, oh, I guess we don't need to use, or don't need to support iOS 8 anymore. Maybe what the data is actually showing you is that your app is crashing all the time on iOS 8. So kind of think about what you're looking at and kind of do some more research before you jump to conclusions based on data. Another kind of example is, say that you notice your Japanese usage or something is going down. And you think, oh, people in Japan must not be using our app anymore because of, I don't know, some reason. And it's actually because like your customer support department decided to stop supporting the Japanese language or something. So like, do some more gathering of details before you jump to conclusions based on data. One of the things that I like about data is that it tends to remove opinion-based things and feeling-based things. And this comes really into play when you're kind of evaluating new features, or are you ready to release something? Because a lot of that tends to be based on user surveys. How much do you like this feature? How much do you not like this feature? And when you're able to combine that with actual raw data, it's kind of this golden marriage. And you can actually tell what people were doing when they kind of made these evaluations. And sometimes you can actually see that when people say, I really hated it, I was using this all weekend, and it was incredibly frustrating, you look at their data and realize that they didn't actually open the product the entire weekend. And you'd be impressed at how many times that kind of stuff actually happens. I try to go overboard when doing new features with data. How are people using it? How are they not using it? Do people use a new feature once and then never use it again? Do they use it once and then come back? Do they have learning trends with new features? These are the kinds of things that, as testers, we can try to mimic in our tests to make testing like a user as accurate as possible. And we can kind of track how features get used through alphas and betas and kind of how that translates into public releases as well to kind of improve alpha and beta programs as well. This is a thing that I've been really loving lately because so many times bugs will come in and be closed out immediately as can't repro, or we don't have enough details here. And my favorite thing now is to dive into analytics and see what was happening for that user analytics side based on the timestamp when a ticket came in. And I can say like, oh, they hit this event, then this event, then this event, and then this happened in the log. Oh, all of a sudden I have repro steps, and then I, as a tester, can kind of recreate what happened in analytics, and all of a sudden I have a repro. And it tends to solve a lot of problems that were unknowns and kind of closed off as these impossible tasks before. Triage is another really great place to use data, especially with difficult decisions, especially regarding things like level of effort. Is it worth fixing this bug that data says only has 20 users that it would affect, but it's going to take development 7 weeks to fix? We've got a really bad bug, and we need to get it out. Turns out iOS 10 is releasing a new beta in a couple weeks. Can we wait that couple weeks? We've only got this many people on iOS 10. These kinds of decisions are great to have evidence through data to kind of just back it up with. Data is also really great for error reporting, especially when it comes to the answer releases. Like I was talking about before, so many times you're kind of focused on, do people like features based on user surveys, the work is done, the bugs are closed. Meanwhile, you can be having all this data spewing as kind of brainless work in the background, where you can have Autocrash logs going, some kind of counter that's tracking error states, and kind of have evidence of like, oh, the trend is going down with crashes, oh, the trend is going down with people hitting errors. And it kind of just adds to your evidence of kind of where your release might be, or people might think the release is going really well, and then you realize there's a massive spike in kind of crashes or error states. Kind of in true Star Trek fashion, keep in mind that data is only part of the crew. You might have kind of engineering concerns, security concerns, leadership concerns, medical concerns if you work for like some medical company or something like that. It's not a good metaphor. But just keep in perspective that data is not the end-all, be-all. It's just something that informs decisions, but isn't the thing that kind of overrides everything. So this is a lightning talk, so I'm trying to jam everything into 5 minutes, but hopefully people are a little more curious about data and kind of how that can inspire testing a little bit. Do people feel like they want to ask more questions about their company's analytics or figure out how they can do that, hopefully? Okay.
I want to launch on what you just said because getting and understanding what the customer is really doing is so key. It often exposes, like you said, that they're not actually using the feature the way that you planned them to use it.
Right.
And our cloud services manager, we found that we thought we had access to what we were providing to provision things, and turns out they said, you know what, we don't think it's fast enough, we're going to go to native and provision anyways. And so that kind of metrics was absolutely critical for us to being able to turn it around and zero in on that versus just assuming because we put the feature out there, they'd follow that path to use it.
Yeah, it's very easy to work in a closed silo and think like, we've designed this great feature, we've coded this great feature, we've internally tested this great feature, put it out to the world, and people will use it in a completely different way, and you're like, you're using it wrong. And like, no, users are going to use it the way they want to use it, you're just thinking about it wrong. And metrics are a great way to kind of help you with that, yeah. Oh, 1 minute.
Okay. Do you also correlate your analytics data with your measurements of the quality that you do before you ship, before you put it out there? And so you can find out, well, we know this works, we know there's a bug over here, and does that help you troubleshoot, for example?
Yeah, especially as far as like, I tend to get concerned when I realize that a feature that we thought was going to be heavily tested, the data shows that nobody's using that feature. We don't really know the quality of that feature based on our beta testing. Like the feature that we were super confident about is off the charts as far as people using it. The feature that we are very concerned about, nobody's been using it at all. Hey, we need more beta cycles. We need to push more on the feature that nobody's using at all.
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Are you driving the product to test, does this feature work? And, or are you just say, well, it looks good, ship it, see what customers experience?
I guess I'm still not following.
Are you having your customers test their product for the first time? Or are you testing it in-house?
Both.
Okay.
So we test it in-house. We get to a stable level, then we release to alpha. Then once alpha is stable enough, then we go to beta.
Okay.
When that's stable enough, then we go to public.
Okay. Well, what techniques do you use for testing in-house?
I suppose I could do a completely different talk on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.